Okay, so today we will be discussing episode 4 of the Obi Wan Kenobi show. This was the shortest episode so far that we've gotten, so this will probably be the shortest review. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So, Obi Wan and Tala finally get to Jabin, and there was no talk of this used to be like a separatist planet and we were abandoned by a Jedi, which, was a little unfortunate, but So, Obi-Wan isn't back then, so is Vader, and so we get to flip between the two of them a lot, and once again, just like episode 3, showing the parallels between them. Obi-Wan gets out and is like, hey, where's Leia? And then we see that Leia has been captured, and we find out that I was right when I guessed the building is called the Inquisitorius. That's where she's being held. So, Obi-Wan wants to go, and Tala is willing to go with him. There's a guy that doesn't want him to go because he's like, hey, I can't risk it. My wife was a Jedi. They found her. You can't escape the Empire. It's just too risky. He eventually comes around, but we'll get into that later. So Tala shows up and her credentials get scanned, and she hasn't been outed as a traitor just yet, but the guy who's scanning her credentials is like, hey, this isn't your sector. And he's like, I'm your commanding officer. I'm in charge. Well, let me through. And he's like, oh, okay. Really thought that was really good. And it shows how very often rebellion spies would use the Empire's nature against it. They would use this sort of feeling of people trying to connive to get to the top, like that guy who was put in charge of a Star Destroyer and ended up destroying it. Just things of that nature. Just using the Empire against itself. I really like that. So, while she's doing that, Obi-Wan is going around. Tala gets to a terminal and is guiding him, but then an Imperial officer comes to get Tala. Tala beats him up. I really thought that was pretty good. It makes sense. And it's sort of foreshadowing of what happens later on and sort of gives sense as to why she's able to do what she does. So, eventually, Obi-Wan comes down the hallway, right? And there's some stormtroopers headed his way. And he's somehow able to get out of the way. I do not know how he was able to move fast enough for them to not notice him. Now, a pretty common criticism that I saw was that Obi-Wan hasn't been using his lightsaber. Well, he uses it pretty often in this episode. Obi-Wan says he needs a distraction, so they're pretty much building up to Reva and Obi-Wan fighting in episode 5, and then Obi-Wan and Vader fighting in episode 6, or some mixing of that. Maybe they both fight Obi-Wan in episode 6, or something of that nature, but obviously they didn't want them to fight here, so Reva gets called away. Tala is waiting for Reva in her office and is like, hey, I know where the rebels are. They're on Florum. Reva's like, you could be lying to me. I don't know if I can trust you. And honestly, she probably should be able to sense that she's lying to her, but, it is what it is. Obi-Wan has this really cool scene where, so Leia's in a chair, and there's 2 stormtroopers on either side of her. Obi-Wan sneaks in, ignites his lightsaber, takes out one. The other stormtrooper freaks out and is looking around, and Obi-Wan appears next to him, ignites his lightsaber, and takes him out too. Saves Leia, and they start to go. All the while, Reva is still talking to Tala, and she's like, hey, I can appreciate a good liar, so I don't know if you're lying to me or for me. I don't know how she would be lying for her. So I guess you can sense when someone's lying to her, but only sometimes, and can't sense that she's clearly just trying to lead her away, or if there's something deeper to this. I don't know. She just thinks that she's lying to her or for her. So anyway, Obi-Wan is going through the hallways. He's fighting off some stormtroopers. And we have a really good moment where he closes a door, right? Because he's fighting off the stormtroopers, and he closes the door because there's like 10 or 15 of them, right? And when he deflected a blaster bolt, it hit a window, and so the window is cracking, and it's about to fall in. So Obi Wan stops it with the Force, tells Tala and Leia to get out of the hallway. So the stormtroopers get the door open, and they come through. Obi Wan pushes pushes the crack of the window out at them, so the water can come into the hallway, and then he runs out. Now, originally I was like, why is he so fast? Like, how is he able to get away from the water? I'm guessing he used force speed. It would just make the most sense. So anyway, Tala and Obi-Wan wrap themselves in Imperial cloaks, and Leia gets inside Obi-Wan's cloak. There he goes out into the hangar, and Reva chases them out there, yells at Tala, is like, "Oh, traitor!" And they surround Obi-Wan and Tala, and it looks like they're about to get captured or killed. And then two snow speeders sort of deus ex machina their way over and save them. It could have been a really cool character moment, but if they had given us more scenes with Roken where he was like, "Oh, I kind of want to send somebody, but I don't want to risk it. You know what? Now I'll send somebody." I feel like if there was more build up, it would have been better. But anyway, the snow speeders show up, take out most of the fighters. Then Obi-Wan and Tala get onto a snow speeder. Another one distracts Reva by shooting at her. The eighth brother runs out, tells the third sister Reva to destroy the snow speeder, and of course she hits the one that Obi-Wan isn't with like some sort of bomb. It blows it up. The lady driving the snow speeder that Obi-Wan and Tala are on is like, "Oh no, wait!" And then they get on the ship, and Vader comes for Reva.
You were warned what defeat would bring. I will tolerate your weakness no longer.
He's obviously angry, and Reva's like, "Wait, I have something. Sorry, I have an ace in the hole." There's a tracker on their ship. I put a tracker we find out it's on Lola, who wakes up with red eyes, which is weird because it's kind of like obvious then. Why did you change your eye color? But, All in all, I think this was a pretty good episode. I really like that it seems like Obi-Wan's getting more and more powerful as he's getting more and more acclimated to using the Force. Blocking blaster bolts, I'm glad that he did not have any sort of trouble with that. I mean, that's literally what his lightsaber form is designed for, Sarisu. Just pure defense. There were some weird times where like people were getting behind him and shooting at him, and they just weren't hitting him. Now, sometimes he would like knock blaster bolts back at them, or he would like dodge and like let the blaster bolt go past him, and then it would hit the guy behind him. But all in all, it wasn't like, "Oh, why haven't you killed him?" Like with the probe droid who was shooting behind him, it was like, oh, it's kind of malfunctioning. It makes sense that it's not shooting at full capacity. And the stormtrooper, oh, he got hit. So nothing too egregious. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Like I said, short review. Anyway, goodbye.